In today's episode, I'll be giving my picks and preview for UFC 305. So, without another second wasted, let's dive into UFC 305.
Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast.
Before we jump into UFC 305, let's recap UFC 304 on the DubCast. So, went 2-2 on my picks for you guys, bringing my overall record to 9-7. Not bad, could be better, but I'm not getting out losers. A little more winners than losers. Hoping to continue that trend on this card. And yeah, so what happened? I had Mitch something Parkin, I think, second fight of the night. Knockout, easy. Arnold Allen, easy win. Well, not easy. That was a good fight against Giga Chikadze. Very technical match. But Leon Edwards, man, I gassed you up so bad, and now I'm hold myself credible. I was duped by Leon. I was duped by a podcast that I won't name, but rhymes with good guy, bad guy. Leon just looked effortless out there. No effort. He just took a dive. I think either Bilal's on steroids. I think Leon took one for the money, or he's just a fraud. Maybe all three. But Leon failed our parlay there, so that was our loss. Pacino lost straight up. He looked like decent, and then he just ran out of gas and got knocked. But our wins, we had Hadley and Lufron to go the distance. Never felt like that was in trouble. Leon and Bilal to go the distance. Also never felt like I was in trouble. Bilal just sits on people. And then pick of the night, Paddy Pimblett. Cashed out a big bonus bet from July when he was plus 150. I know he came all the way down to like minus 105, plus 105, but Paddy straight up, easy win. Subs Bobby Green in the first, was that the first round? Yeah, it was first round, like the first minute. So 2-2 there for UFC 304. Not really a great card, if I'm being honest. I mean, the only thing that I really didn't touch on was Aspinall. Did not bet on Aspinall because his odds were fucked, but Aspinall's a good fighter. Can't wait to see him fight against Stipe. Once Stipe beats Jones and Jones retires. No, I'm just kidding, but it seems like John Jones is going to retire, so I don't know what's next for Aspinall, but he should not fight again until he's fighting for the real belt. I think he knows that. So, yeah, not a great card in UFC 304. Hoping 305 can deliver. I think there's potential here. I think this main card could be potentially stronger than 304. So let's see. So yeah, moving on to UFC 305. It is in Perth, Australia, which will play a factor because there's, once again, this voodoo with a lot of fighters being from Australia. I don't know if that impacts their helps them win or not. We saw in UFC 304, Molly Meatball lost in her home crowd, and Leon lost in front of his home crowd. So maybe it's not the end all be all, but I do think that it does play a factor. But we'll talk that through as we go through the card. And yeah, I think this main card, the last 5 fights of the night look really legit. I'm excited for them. Can't wait to watch this UFC weekend and give you guys some picks. So without a shadow of a doubt, let's get into our first fights on the early prelims. First fight of the night is a flyweight bout between Stuart Nickel. He is minus 225 in the money line, and Jesus Aguilar. Or he's facing Jesus or Jesus Aguilar, who is plus 185. So, as always, I will not be betting on the first fight of the night, but I'll run these guys down for you. Stuart Nickel, he's Australian. He's 8-0 in his career. This is his first fight in the UFC. He has 4 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, 1 by decision, and he's an inch taller than Aguilar. And Aguilar is 10-2 in his career, 3-1 in the UFC. Nothing to sneeze at there. His only loss is to Tatsuo Taira, who's obviously pretty legit. We saw him on a fight night a couple months ago. And in his loss, he was submitted. His wins are 1 knockout, 1 submission, and 1 decision. So really, all a bunch of variants there. It doesn't really have a preferred method or a consistent method of finishing. So as I stated before, won't be touching this one with a 10-foot pole. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Nicole, but I mean, it's not looking very promising. He just seems a little bit more explosive and could do it in a various amount of ways. As for the distance, not sure how this one ends, so I can't confidently pick for you guys. I think it could go to the distance because we see guys like Stuart Nicol enter the UFC, and they can't have a feel for things. I always think back to Michael Venom Page. He's this crazy knockout artist in Bellator, or I think it was PFL or Bellator, one of those two. And then he comes to the UFC. You got to feel things out. So maybe it could go the distance. I don't know the odds on it at all. But yeah, I'm not touching this fight at all. So I have nothing on this one. Number 2 fight of the night. We have a welterweight battle between Song Kanan, who is minus 175 in the money line, and he faces off against Ricky Glenn, who is plus 145. These odds dropped since Monday, since I did my research, in favor of Ricky Glenn. I think he came down a little bit. So that's something to keep note of. Let's jump into the fighters. So Song Kanan, he's 5-4 in the UFC, not a great record. He's lost to Ian Machado Gary, obviously the undefeated welterweight in his division. Ian's good. And he also lost to Alex Morono, who I don't think is very good. Having watched all these cards and seeing who's who, a loss to Alex Moreno doesn't really scream like I want to pick you. He's got no notable wins, and he's coming off a loss. 3 knockouts and 2 decisions in his 5 wins in the UFC, and then his losses 2 knockouts and 2 decisions. And he's also lost to Izzy in a previous promotion. Our last fight of the night, he's lost to Israel Adesanya, so interesting there. He's fought against Izzy and Ian Machado Gary. Didn't beat them, so it doesn't really do much for me. On to Ricky Glenn. He's 4-1 in the UFC. He beat Joaquim Silva, who's mid, and he lost to Drew Dober in October of last year. I think Drew Dober's okay. 3 of his 4 wins have come via decision, 2 losses by knockout, and 2 by decision. So yeah, I'm probably not touching anything in this fight either. I think there's a lot of variability in the finish rates, and I'm not really sure who's the better fighter. Looking at the stats and reading who they fought and all that, I think Song Kanan could be the pick. Or if you have to pick a fight or have to pick someone in every fight, his odds indicate he's a bit better. I mean, listen, when it comes down to it, favorites usually win, and it sucks. That's why it's so hard to find an underdog, but favorites usually win. So if you need to pick one, pick Song Kanan. On to our 3rd fight of the night, a beautifully balanced lightweight fight between Tom Nolan and Alex Reyes. Tom Nolan is minus 1,300 on the money line, and Alex Reyes is plus 700. So about Tom Nolan, he's 1-1 in the UFC after winning his fight in the Dana White Contender Series. All of his fights have ended in knockout in the UFC, including the Dana White Contender Series, and then in his other promotion, 3 of his 5 fights ended in knockout. He's got a 4-inch height advantage, and he's 13 years younger than Alex Reyes. So Alex Reyes has 2 fights in the UFC, lost both. One of them was in 2017. I guess he got re-signed in 2023. I'll say right here, excuse me, I'm not a UFC expert. I'm trying to slowly learn the game, so I just look at this type of stuff. He lost to Mike Perry in 2017, who's, maybe Mike Perry was a little better back then, but nowadays he's not really known for being a good fighter. He's on the other side, though, so I won't go on him too hard. He was on a 13-fight win streak before joining the UFC in 2017 with another promotion. And yeah, as I mentioned before, he's 37 near the end of his career. So obviously the odds indicate that Nolan's just going to smash him. I don't see real value here, to be honest. Nolan minus 1,300, there's no point in this, obviously. Maybe taken by knockout. I'm not sure what those odds are, but they're probably not good enough to take. I think, yeah, take Nolan if you want to pick someone. I think this isn't one of those pick-me-up fights, when he knocks out this guy, moves up a class and fights somebody else, I don't see a world for Reyes to come back and win here. So, on to the regular prelims. Not much happened in the early prelims, in my opinion. Our first fight of the regular prelims is a featherweight fight between Jack Jenkins and Herbert Burns. And Jack Jenkins is minus 900. Herbert Burns is plus 525. So Jack Jenkins is 2-1 in the UFC after he won his fight in the Dana White Contender Series as well. Don't know any of the people he's fought either way. 2 wins have come via decision, 1 loss via knockout. He's 6 years younger with 5.5 less inches of reach and 2-inch height disadvantage. Herbert Burns is a big motherfucker for featherweight. Herbert Burns, he's 2-3 in the UFC after winning Dana White Contender Series. He's won over Nate Landwehr, who I know is not good in fighting. He's got a 3-loss streak, and they've all been by knockout. In his wins, he had a submission and a decision, I believe. Could be wrong on that, but he could pull off submissions in his other promotions. So I guess that's something to keep an eye on if you're Herbert Burns guy. I know there's people out there who are saying it's Herbert Burns fight week. Probably was a joke, but in case it wasn't, I don't know. So the picks, once again, staying away. Odds are just ballooning massively towards Jack Jenkins. That trend seems to continue, and I see exactly why that is. Herbert Burns is not good at fighting. That being said, they're just too high right now, and I don't really see a clear method for Jenkins to win this one. I think it could go any of which ways. So staying away. Decision could be the case, but I don't know about that because Burns doesn't really have a great chin, so it could be a KO as well. On to our fifth fight of the night is a women's flyweight fight between number 15th ranked Casey O'Neill, and she takes on Luana Santos, who is fighting on short notice, I believe. So Casey O'Neill is Australian, and she is 4-2 in the UFC. She lost to Jennifer Meyer, who I believe is pretty good. Maya, not Meyer. I think I said Meyer. I don't know. It's weird. She's got 2 knockouts, a sub, and decision, making up her wins, and 1 decision and 1 submission, making up her losses. She's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and she's fighting to defend her ranking. Obviously, if you don't know how the UFC works, you win, you get the ranking. So if Luana wins this, she gets the 15th ranking. So a little bit about Luana Santos. She's 8-1 in her career, 3-0 in the UFC. No really notable wins, but only having been in the UFC for a little bit, I wouldn't really expect that because there's not really a lot of notable women fighters. So this could help her get in the rankings, get those good fights. She has 1 submission, 1 decision, and 1 knockout in her wins. She pulled 3 submissions in her previous promotion, so I believe she's Brazilian as well. So you know the Brazilians are always trained on their submissions. Her only loss was by decision, and she is a grappler as well. She gets takedowns. So picks here, I like Santos. I'm taking her on one of my parlays later. I think she's dangerous and can win in any sort of ways. I don't really think O'Neill is that great, but she's nothing to sneeze at either. So this is a pretty risky pick, I think. I think they want to get Santos into the rankings, but that could not be true because they pulled her in on a short notice. But she was maybe one of the first ones they called. I don't know. I like her to win money line. Parlay. And by submission could be a juicy odds bet. I don't know what the odds are on that, but Luana could sub her, and that could be a good, nice little play there. And I don't think, like I mentioned with the UK card, Mali was a huge favorite because I'm assuming they factored in her being British. I think the Australians, not all of them are going to win. I think Casey O'Neill is one of those people who lose. So I like Luana Santos in this fight. On to the 6th fight of the night. We have a featherweight fight between Josh Culibao, and he takes on Ricardo Ramos. So Josh is -140, and Ricardo Ramos is +120. So Josh Culibao is Australian. He's 3-3-1 in the UFC. He lost to Jalen Turner, who's hot and cold, so that could mean any of which ways. In his wins, he's got 2 decisions, 1 submission, and 2 decisions and a knockout. To Jalen Turner is the person who knocked him out. In his losses, he's got an inch in height and reach advantage, and he does not grapple at all. He's a striker. And we got looking at Ricardo Ramos. He's been in the UFC since 2017. He's got no notable wins really. He lost against Julian Erosa, who I know is not good. Charles Jourdain, who I believe is just announced today. He's switching weight divisions. Leron Murphy and Saeed Nurmagomedov. Whatever. You guys know who I'm talking about. Khabib's cousin. So his wins are either by knockout or decision, and only 1 submission in his career. His losses are knockouts or submission, and he had 1 decision loss. So I'm liking Culibao to get the decision but to get the job done. Ramos doesn't really beat good competition, but not that Culibao has either, but I just trust Culibao more in this fight. Not sure how he gets it done. I don't know if this one goes the distance. I think Culibao could get a knockout, maybe a TKO. Not sure. Maybe decision. I just don't know. So I do like Culibao though in front of the home crowd. Australian pride, as I hypocritically say that after the last fight. I like him. Money line. We'll throw that on the parlay as well. So Culibao and Santos so far on the DubCast card. The 7th fight of the night is a heavyweight bout between Junior Tafa and Walter Walker. So Junior Tafa is -130 on the money line. Walter Walker is +110. Junior Tafa is Australian. He's 1-2 in the UFC, and he lost to Muhammad Usman, Kamaru Usman's brother. I don't know if Muhammad Usman's good. I looked at his stats pretty quickly. He looks okay, so it's a fine loss, I guess. All of his fights, besides 1, have ended in knockout. Usually earlier, but some have been later on in the rounds. He doesn't really grapple at all. 3 inches behind in height, and he's down like 15-ish pounds. At heavyweight, they can be whatever the weight they want. He's 6 inches behind in reach, so he doesn't have the physicals there, but Vegas likes him, so you can tell he's probably more technical, probably just a slightly better fighter. His opponent, Walter Walker, is 0-1 in the UFC. He lost to Brzezinski by decision. Yeah, that's not really good, bro. But he's weird because it's like this is his only loss, but he's way better. Like I think he could be way better. It's like these heavyweight guys are so hard to predict who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. Because he was 11-0 before the UFC. He beat people 60% of the time by decision, like 40% by KO. I don't know. It's just like I don't see a clear path here. You know, I don't have a dog in this fight either because it's like I don't know what you're getting with Walter Walker. Is he going to be good? Is his loss to Brzezinski like a fluke? I don't know. Yeah, as I mentioned before, he's got the measurable and was a champ in his previous promotion. So I don't know what that means. That's probably good for him, but like if he's losing to Brzezinski in a decision, not good. So yeah, once again, staying away. I hate this fight from a betting perspective. Obviously, Vegas doesn't really love it either. I think these are the couple of the closest odds in the fight. Just two no good heavyweights who are probably going to end this in a knockout, but you can't predict who's going to do it. They could also just wrestle for 15 minutes. I got nothing. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Tafa, but I'd have very little confidence in that. So we are on to our main card, the first card of the main card, and fight number 8 on the night is a welterweight fight between Li Jingliang and Carlos Prates. So Li Jingliang is plus 280, and Carlos Prates is minus 380. So Li Jingliang, he's a UFC vet. He's been around since 2014. He's got notable wins over Oleski Zaleski dos Santos, who's okay. We saw him fight at 302, I believe. I think he won against somebody, so I don't know what that means, but this is from a long time ago, so maybe it doesn't matter that much. He's got decent little resume of losses. He lost to Daniel Rodriguez, Cosma, Neil Magny, and Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews and Neil Magny are kind of gatekeepers of division, but, you know, Cosma, obviously a beast. So he's not fought since September of 2022, which is almost 2 years ago. I believe he's been injured, a back injury, I heard, so not looking great for Lee. Yeah. He's almost all of his wins come via knockout, and his losses come via decision or sub. He's never been knocked out. He's got an iron chin. So let's keep that in mind when we talk about his opponent, Carlos Prates, who's 2-0 in the UFC after winning his fight in the Dana White Contender Series. I don't recognize any of his opponents. Obviously, he's a younger guy coming up in the rankings. This should be a pretty good test for him, I think. He's got 8 wins in a row, and they've all come via knockout. He doesn't grapple, while Lee grapples a little bit, but also doesn't really grapple that much, so it's going to be a striking match. They're going to throw hammers. So here, while conventional wisdom says this one will end early by knockout because they're both like knockout artist strikers, I do think this one goes on for a little bit. Prates hasn't really faced a UFC vet like Lee, especially someone with an iron chin, and I think if he's actually like the stud upcomer, he could knock him out. I don't think it'll be early. I'm looking at the over in this one. I think the over, yeah, Lee has a great chin. Lee could also be a little bit rusty, so he's not going to be throwing him. You know, he just had his back repaired for like 2 years, so he might not be like on the top of his game either if he's going to knock him out. So I'm liking the over in this. I haven't looked at the odds. It might be like a, I don't know, over a round and a half. Could be a play. So I'm throwing the over on here. I'll look at it and give it I'll say over 1.5 rounds. I don't know what that is, but it's a parlay piece, so we'll put that on parlay, see how it goes. Over 1.5 rounds for Prates and Li Jingliang. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like Lee could pull off an upset. Honestly, he's one of my favorite underdogs in this card. Maybe my favorite underdog in this card. Just not a lot of love for the underdogs, in my opinion. I don't think any of them are going to win, besides maybe one we'll talk about later on. But yeah, I could also see Prates easily winning. So I'm not betting on the outcome of the fight by fighter, but I do like the over in this one, and we'll throw that into a parlay later on. So the next fight is fight number 9, and it's a heavyweight bout between number 10, Tai Tuivasa, in the heavyweight division. I think I just said that twice, sorry. Plus 180, and he faces off against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who is minus 220 on the odds. So Tai Tuivasa, famous for the shoe beers. He's Australian. He's been around the UFC since 2017. He beat Arlovsky, who's not good. Greg Hardy, was pretty mid. Derek Lewis was good, but then recently became mid. He lost against Junior Dos Santos, Spivak, Gane, Pavlovich. I guess he almost beat Volkov, but lost to him in Tybura. And I think Tybura just got submitted last week, so not a great look there. All of his wins, besides against Andrei Arlovsky, have come via knockout. He's got 2 submission losses recently and 2 KOs. I think he's on a 4-fight lose streak. So, yeah, been out cold the last 4 fights. He's not won a fight since 2022, and he got submitted in March of this year. So he's back, 5-month turnaround for the Australian Tai Tuivasa. His opponent, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's been around the UFC since 2017. He's beat Arlovsky, which I guess that's a common opponent for them. He beat Alistair Overeem. He's beat Junior Dos Santos, another common opponent. He beat Junior Dos Santos. Tui lost. Tai lost. He beat Chris Doskis. He's also lost against Francis Ngannou. Gane, the common opponent, they both lost. Curtis Blades, Volkov, common opponent, they both lost. He was submitted by Jailton Almeida, which I can't tell if Jailton Almeida is good, so I don't know what to make of that. He's 5-5 in his last 10 fights after seemingly falling out of contention in the heavyweight division. I know right when I got into the UFC in 2021, in the spring of 2021 or 2021, I think, he was like a contender. He was having a fight night, but I think since then he's come down a little bit. He's found himself at number 12. So his wins, they come via knockout, and his losses, 2 of them were knockouts, 2 decisions, 1 submission. So 2 very similar fighters, and I think this one will go like maybe 2 rounds. Like, this is ending early for sure. I think Vegas probably sees that though happening, and they probably give you bad odds for that. And we saw that with the Aspinall and Blades fight. I do like Rozenstruik though, but I'm not confident enough to put that on my betting card. But probably will throw that into like a round robin or a parlay at some point. But I don't want to give that to you guys as an official pick because I'm not confident in that. I only give you guys my best, confident, most good picks. So Rozenstruik, I like him, but not enough to throw him on the betting card. But probably will throw some money his way / on him in this fight card. So the third to last fight of the evening, we have a lightweight bout between number 5 Matzus Gamrot, who's minus 350, and he faces off against number 11 Dan Hooker, who's plus 265. Matzus Gamrot, he only has 2 losses in the UFC since 2020. One of them was to Beneil Dariush, who's pretty good recently, I think. He's won over RDA, Fiziev, Jalen Turner, Sarukian, and Jeremy Stevens. So nice little resume there for Gamrot. He can win in a various amount of ways. Fights have gone to decision about half the time, so that's his most common, but doesn't always mean it's necessarily going to end that way. And in his wins, he's also, besides the decisions, he's had 3 knockouts, 1 submission. If he goes down, it's usually been by decision. So his opponent, Dan Hooker, he's been in the UFC since 2014. Another guy I watched right when I was getting back to the UFC in 2021 when he lost to Chandler. He beat Jim Miller, Gilbert Burns, Al Iaquinta, Paul Felder, Nasrat, and Jalen Turner. Like, some okay guys in there, but nothing really popping off the page. He's lost against Arnold Allen, who we saw at 304, Islam, who's a beast, obviously Chandler, who's a beast, Poirier, beast, Barboza, who I think is pretty good, and Yair, who's solid. So he can win any way. He hasn't had submissions since 2017. He has knockouts and he has decisions, but not really a sub guy. So losses, he can also go out in any amount of which ways. So my picks here, I like Gamrot. He was like minus 300 when I did my research. He's up to minus 350. Got to throw him on a parlay. You can't put all your money on minus 350. It's just not good betting strategy. His odds are continuing to increase, and they still are, so I'm not sure if it's worth it, but I will be placing bets tomorrow, or today as you're listening to this, so I'm on Gamrot today. You got to bet him today because it's just going to keep going down and down. I don't think Hooker can win against guys of Gamrot's level. I think Gamrot's a step above Hooker. I think you could put him in the class with all of those guys that Hooker lost to. So I think that trend continues on here. I think Gamrot's for real and could be next up in this division. I think he's going to move up a little bit here. And, he could be seeing himself in a title contender fight with, say, like a Charles Oliveira rematch versus Sarukian. I see the vision. No measure on method or distance because Gamrot wins in a various amount of ways. Hooker loses in a various amount of ways. There's no really pattern here. I think it could go this and it could not. I think it can just go any which way. I do like Gamrot money line though. So on to our co-main event. We have 2 fights left. This one is a featherweight bout between number 4 Kai Kara France, who is plus 135 in the money line. He faces off against number 7 Steve Urcheg, who is minus 160. So Kai Kara France, he's been in the UFC since 2018. He beat Cody Garbrandt, who at this point's just okay. I think he's kind of in and out of the rankings. His notable losses are to Moreno 2 times, and he also lost to Royval. 4 of his losses in the UFC are 4 losses in the UFC total. 2 of them were via decision, 1 submission, 1 knockout. His wins are usually decisions, some knockouts mixed in there. His opponent, my boy, Best Buy employee, Steve Urcheg. He's Australian, 3-0 in the UFC until his fight at 301, the first card covered by the DubCast. He fought Pantoja at UFC 301 and barely lost in decision, went for takedowns in round 5. It was not smart strategy. He'll admit that. Well, he didn't admit. I watched his interview after, but he was trying to prove if he could go on the ground and beat him, then he could win. But people have scored that for Urcheg. I think Pantoja won 3-2. I think that was a fine decision, but he was right there. He's right about to be champion, and he's back now fighting against Kai France. Also, he's got that knockout power. Saw him beat, I think it was Matt Schnell. He just knocked him out. He can also submit if need be. He's only lost 2 fights in his career, and they both come via decision. So the picks, once again, I'm back in Urcheg. That's my boy, one of my favorite fighters right now. I was shocked when I looked at Kai France's fight history. I feel like he hasn't really fought a lot of people. I mean, I know the featherweight division's not the greatest division in the sport, but I thought there'd be more juice to the bone there, more meat to the bone on Kai France's resume. He hasn't really beaten anybody that's sticking out to me. Urcheg, granted, you could say the same thing about Urcheg. We just saw him fight Pantoja. He's well rested. I think that was like 3 or 4 months ago. I think Urcheg's just better. He's also pretty tall for the division. He's lanky. He can use that in a sort of a Sean O'Malley glitchy way. I don't know. I think people are underestimating Urcheg a little bit. And I think we can use this chance. I'm going to give the Leon speech again. People are underestimating Urcheg, so let's bet him now before he becomes minus 400 every fight. I also like this fight to go the distance, especially if it's 3 rounds. If it's 5 rounds, it gets a little trickier just due to timing. But I think this one's 3 rounds. Could be totally wrong. If it's 5 rounds, still maybe go the distance. Throw it on there. So Urcheg, we're throwing on there up money line, and we're also throwing this fight to go the distance on the card as well. So finally, we get to our main event. It is a middleweight fight between the champion of the division, Dricus du Plessis, and he's only minus 105 on the money line. He goes against number 2 contender, Israel Adesanya, minus 115 on the money line. So if you're a UFC fan, you know most about these guys, but I'll read you through the resumes real quick. So Dricus, he's only lost 2 fights in his career. He's not lost in the UFC yet. He beat Strickland in January, I believe it was. He beat Whitaker. He's beat Brunson. He's beat Till. He's beat Tavares. He only has 2 decisions in the UFC this far, one of them coming against Strickland in his last fight. He's got 4 knockouts and a submission. And his losses in the prior promotion, 1 came via sub and 1 came via knockout, so he's never lost via a decision. His opponent, the guy who sits out for a year and loses the belt and then just gets to do nothing for a year and come back and fight for the belt again. Because it's Israel Adesanya. Woo. Give me a break, bro. Strickland, this should be a Strickland rematch against Dricus du Plessis, I think. Now, unfortunately, Strickland got fucked because now he's going to have to fight again to get into this championship again. And that's fucked up because it's also Whitaker's going off. They want to give a title shot to Chimaev, too. So Strickland really got screwed here by this Israel Adesanya matchmaking. Dricus, he said, I'll take whoever. Obviously, Dricus and Israel had a little bit of history. But, yeah, I don't really like how Israel just gets to sit out for a year and do nothing. I think he's getting the John Jones treatment. And John Jones is champ. Israel's like a number 2 contender, bro. Like, you got to be active. You got to go do something, The last time we saw you got fucking your head kicked in by Strickland on that. I was just watching the first 2 rounds of that fight the other day. Strickland was like plus 600, and he just came out there and just dogged him. So, you can probably already tell where I'm going on this one, but we'll run through his resume. So he's been in the UFC since 2018. He's beat Vettori 2 times. He's also beat Tavares. He's also beat Brunson. Beat Anderson Silva at the end of his career. He's beat Calvin Gastelum. He's beat Whitaker twice. So common opponents they've all won against. Well, Strickland, Dricus beat, but Adesanya did not beat. So that's the only common opponent that has a different result. Izzy's also beat Romero, Costa, Cannonier, and also, most notably, Alex Pereira. He's lost to Strickland, Jan Blachowicz, and Pereira. So, nothing to sneeze at. I do respect his resume. It is pretty legit. He had a good run as middleweight champion. So his wins usually come via decision, but he can knock people out for sure. Pereira and Whitaker stand out as pretty big knockouts. Pereira has, I don't know if he has a tough chin, but he's throwing heat. Whitaker, I think, has a tough chin. So congrats, Izzy. Good wins. 2 of his 3 losses have come via decision. 1 was the knockout via LX. So here we go. Head over heart pick, our heart over head pick. I'm picking Dricus. Show me the money. I don't like Izzy sitting out for a year. I'm an Izzy hater. I think he's my least favorite fighter in the UFC. He's posting weird shit on Twitter. You can go look at that if you want to. Yeah, just not good. There's a lot of beef in this. There's a lot of history here. I already placed a bonus bet in July on Dricus, and I'm struggling with that now. Though I do think that if it comes down to decision, I think Izzy's got the judges in his pocket. I think they'll be automatically rigged for Izzy. I once again hate how Izzy just sat out for a year and he gets a free run back at the title. Strickland, say what you will about him, but he deserves this rematch before Izzy, who hasn't done anything. Granted, Izzy's fought a lot of the guys at the top, but it's like, can we go fight a Chimaev for this? You know what I mean? Come on, bro. Strickland after Strickland beat Izzy. Here, get this comparison. So Strickland after Izzy. He defends his belt against Duplessis, loses, then faces Costa, then it still doesn't have a title shot back. Izzy loses and does nothing, and then he gets it. This is bullshit, bro. I'm sorry. I'm calling out the UFC. I don't like this at all. So I do worry for Dricus though that the judges will be in Izzy's pocket, and if this goes to decision, I think Izzy. He does this little thing where he stands away and just reaches at your range, and Dricus is not very tall for this division. Izzy's got more reach probably and definitely more length. So I may hedge my bonus bet with Izzy by decision, but I'm not going to do that. I decided because I want nothing. I want to be depressed if Izzy wins. I want somebody to get Izzy out of here. I think Izzy's older. Dricus is just young in his career. Dricus has the chance to be a great UFC legend. Izzy already is one. Izzy doesn't have as much to fight for. This could be his last run, I guess. No, probably not. He's got a couple years left in him, and he can just sit out and get title shots, so might as well stay. For some reason, I just don't see this one ending early. I do like it to go the distance. I'm not confident enough to give that to you guys as a pick, but I will say I think the over and this fight to go the distance could be a very strong play. I looked at the odds today, actually. It was minus 110 to go the distance, so about an even play there for you guys. So yeah, we're adding Dricus to the card. All right, card complete. Now let's go into the things I'll bet on, and then the official DubCast card for UFC 305. So things I'll bet on, but I'm not confident enough to add to the card. Tom Nolan by knockout, which probably is minus 700, probably has shit odds, but I'll take a look at that when I go make my bets tomorrow. Rosenstreak, moneyline, minus 220. I need to figure out a way to add that to a round robin or a parlay or something. Dricus and Izzy, the over. That sounds like it's going to be 3.5, 4.5 rounds. I do like that. I think this fight's going to go the distance, and that'll also be something else I take Dricus and Izzy to go the distance. So there you go. Nice little 4 picks if you don't love my card. You can use those picks if you want. So the official DubCast card, hoping to go to 13-7, improving off our 9-7 record. So I got 3 parlays and 1 head-to-head pick. I got names for all the parlays too. So first parlay, the prelim parlay. We got Luana Santos and we got Josh Cooleybow money line. That gives you a plus 150, nice little scoop there. Plus odds. There you go. Next parlay, main card parlay. We got Gamrot money line and Urcheg. Last I checked, this was a minus 115 parlay. Could use, maybe you could throw a Rosenstruck in there. But Urcheg's odds have gone down a little bit, but Gamrot's have gone up, so it's probably maybe plus 110 now. This if you're lucky, it'll be in the about even range. But I do like this parlay. 2 of the more solid picks here, maybe my 2 favorite picks, honestly, Urcheg and Gamrot to win. Next parlay, we got the distance parlay. So Prates and Li Jiang over on whatever the over is. Distance, I don't know about distance, but if there's over 1.5 rounds, you get decent enough odds on that, take that. And also Urcheg and Kai Kara France go the distance, so pair those 2 together. Probably see a plus sign. Good odds. Let's milk it. Let's go. Let's make money. And the last pick, hard overhead pick, Dricus money line. Dricus, do it for us out there, man. We can't have Izzy as champion again. I'll be pissed. I'll be sad. It'll ruin my whole night. So Dricus, Please, bro. I'll be rooting for you. And people don't like Drekus. I like Drekus. I think he's fine. So go Drekus. So that'll wrap up UFC 305 picks and preview. What do you guys think of my picks? Where did I go right? Where did I go wrong? What picks are you guys taking? And yeah, excited to watch this event. I think there could be some good fights here. Late prelims, early main card. See some interesting battles. So as always, I'll be tuned in for most of the card, and can't wait to get back and talk to you guys about UFC 306, the fight in the Sphere, I believe. So as always, keep it easy, and Drekus.